a female, my fiance, my ex-fiance from
First of all,
Colorado.
excuse me, these women are not your fiancés. Unless they have a ring and a wedding date, they're not your
She
fiancé.
was my fiance.
But again, my point is you're always expecting women to take care of you, living with either your sister, girlfriend, your mom. My question is, why haven't you ever tried to live on your own?
I don't know about you, but I've been craving me some Miss Jackson. So gonna do some parole revocation hearings to start with Miss Jackson and Mr. O'Shea, and of course Miss Renatza in the mix. And yeah, let's jump in.
Okay, and our first remote location this morning is at East Baton Rouge Parish Jail. Would the staff at East Baton Rouge please introduce yourself?
I'm Captain Miles, Chief of Intake and Release.
Captain, thanks for accommodating us today. And we have before us Mr. Jackson. Is that you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Jackson, for the record, sir, tell us your name and DOC number.
Willie Jackson, 377-123.
All right, Mr. Jackson, we're here for a revocation decision this morning. Do you have a parole revocation questionnaire there with you?
Yes, ma'am.
That's your signature at the bottom of that page dated November 16th of this year?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Jackson. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to read the allegations against you, after which you'll enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. Or you can plead guilty with a statement or not guilty with a statement. And then we'll have a discussion about your plea before we vote, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're accused of violating the conditions of your parole, specifically condition number 2. You failed to make monthly reports. How do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Plead guilty.
Okay. And then condition number 3, multiple attempts were made to contact you at your address of record. You were never there, and only collateral contact was made at each visit. A family member also contacted probation and parole and informed that you do not actually live or sleep at the residence of record. Your actual residence remained unknown to the Baton Rouge District Parole Office. BRPD, Baton Rouge Police Department report number 23-04807, in which officers were informed that you do not live at your address of record, but only comes by sometimes. So how do you plead to violating condition number 3?
Plead guilty with a statement.
Okay. And then condition number 4, the same BRPD report indicates on May 4th, 2023, your aunt, Rose Richardson, called the police because it is alleged you slapped her across the face. How do you
Not
plead?
guilty. Not guilty.
Not guilty. And lastly, condition number 10, as of November 6, 2023, your supervision fee account was 25 payments behind and was $5,272 in arrears. How do you plead?
Plead guilty to that.
Okay, your case has been assigned to Mr. Roche. Would you answer his question, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Morning, Mr. Jackson.
Good morning.
Mr. Jackson, you pled guilty to condition number 2, not filing your monthly reports. Do you have an explanation why?
Yes, sir. When I did try to get a job, I ended up having a car accident, and throughout the car accident, I'm going to physical therapy. Like right now, I'm in physical therapy. I'm going to see a spinal cord specialist. So that's why I was never at the house the majority of the time, because my fiance was taking me.
Sir. That's what it is. Why did you file your monthly reports?
Oh, my phone got stolen. My phone got stolen.
So why didn't
Use
you?
somebody else's phone.
Yeah.
I just failed to do it. Just felt
Why didn't you
slow.
go into the office?
I didn't have no vehicle. I was using my fiance's vehicle. That's why I was at her house a lot of the time.
Okay, so you had your fiance vehicle, so why didn't you go to the office?
I was going to the office. He came seeing me at my fiance house, and I did make a few monthly reports. But initially, I mean, it fell off when I had the accident.
Okay. Condition number 3, you didn't stay at your assigned address.
I stayed there. I wasn't there the majority of the time. But that is my residence. I do live there.
But according to a parole contract that you signed when you were released, you said, I would live at that address, I would sleep at that address, and that is my address of record. Did you not?
Yes, sir.
Why didn't you do it?
Was doing it until I had the accident. When I had the accident, I needed the transportation. The only transportation that I had was my fiance. And the only way I could get,
And did you inform your parole officer of this?
yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. He
And what-
knows that.
And what did your parole officer say?
He came out to my fiance's residence.
Okay. Condition number 4, you were accused of slapping your aunt, Rosa Richardson, in the face.
No, we had a misunderstanding. I didn't hear her. I did not hear her.
How long have you been on supervision?
10 years.
So you've been on supervision for 10 years.
Yes, sir.
And when did you have the accident?
I think I had the accident in August
Of 23.
of 23. Yes, sir.
So basically you were drastically behind in your fees before you had the accident.
Yes, sir.
So tell me why you didn't pay your fees.
I was finding a job at the time.
So
I
you
didn't have a vehicle at first.
So
When I did,
you've been on parole for 10 years, you said. Is that
yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
And you said, and you telling me you now you had a job in the last 5 or 10 years?
Yes, sir. I was working. I was paying my parole vision fees. I was paying. When I had the job, I was paying.
Okay, so basically, what is your monthly fee?
$63.
$63, and you some what? $5,200. So you telling me that you're almost 4 or 5 years behind in your fees?
Yes, sir. With the pandemic and everything, yes, sir.
Everybody blames the pandemic.
I'm not blaming the pandemic, sir. I'm not blaming that.
The pandemic was only 2 years.
I'm not blaming the pandemic.
So you said you didn't have employment during the pandemic?
No, sir, I didn't.
So what was your job before the pandemic?
I was working at Excel at Shell Geismar.
And they laid you off?
Yes, sir. I got laid off.
For what reason?
Smoking marijuana.
Okay. So it was your fault.
Yes, sir. It was my fault.
No further questions, Madam Chair.
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Jackson, have you ever been diagnosed with any kind of mental health issues?
No, ma'am.
And how old are you?
45.
And you've been out of prison for 10 years?
Yes, ma'am.
And who have you lived with for the bulk of that 10 years? So you were like 35 when you got out of
Okay.
prison?
Yes, ma'am. When I first made parole in 13, I paroled home to my sister resident. Okay. And after I got a job, I stayed with the job for a few years and changed jobs. I went on and changed my parole to my mother's address because she was
Let
getting
me
up in
ask you
age.
this. Why didn't you ever get a place of your own?
I did. I
When?
had in 215. In 215, man, a female, my fiance, my ex-fiance from
First of all,
Colorado.
excuse me, these women are not your fiancés. Unless they have a ring and a wedding date, they're not your
She
fiancé.
she was my fiance.
But again, my point is you're always expecting women to take care of you, living with either your sister, girlfriend, your mom. My question is, why haven't you ever tried to live on your own?
Because I need the help. I need to get up. I mean, I didn't have no money to get a car. When I did get the car, then I had to pay insurance. There's a lot of things I had to pay on my own that I needed the support for.
Well, when you were working with the guys and living with
ma'am.
somebody else, why didn't you save money to get a
That's
car?
what I said. I did, and I got a car, and I was doing good and everything. And like I said, now this woman here was my fiance. We had a ring. And me and her split ways. When me and her departed,
My point is, Mr. Jackson, you have an excuse for everything.
it's not
Yeah.
an excuse.
Yeah, really it is. You haven't done anything to take care of your responsibilities. You didn't report to your parole officer like you should. You didn't live where you say you were supposed to live. You didn't pay what you were supposed to pay. And, you know, how much time do you have hanging over your head on this charge, this manslaughter? How much time do you owe?
I had 20 years. I did 18 months, 18 years, 9 months, and made parole. And I had like 20 years over my head.
So that's not enough incentive for you to, but obviously not. It didn't cause you to do the things you needed to do so that you don't get revoked and have to go back and serve those years.
I mean, I was doing it. I mean, I was slow by doing it, but I was doing it.
That's all I have.
Mr. Jackson, anything you want to say to us before we vote?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, could y'all please take in consideration I was home for 10 years and I didn't get no infraction. I didn't get no charges or anything. I was working. I mean, I had a few minor setbacks, but I mean, I'm human. We have setbacks, you know. I mean, it's like I didn't have a nice support staff. I did have a nice support staff. I was working. I mean, I got laid off a job one time, but for the most part, I was working, paying my supervision fees. I was doing what I did. I mean, the world the world moved fast. I was a juvenile when I got incarcerated. You know, I was 16 years old. But when I came home, I was a grown person. So all these things weighed a factor on me. The things that our people are fighting for right now about juveniles being in the adult facility. I was one of those people that was charged as a juvenile and put in the adult facility. You know,
Well,
I
Mr.
mean,
Mr. Jackson, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. Now, you say you were working and you got laid off once and you were paying your fees, but you're $5,272 in arrears. That's 83 months. Given the pandemic was 2 years, that's only $1,500. So you were not paying your fees. You've had opportunities before. You've had violations before. There was a domestic abuse battery. There was a possession of a firearm, and the board reprimanded you in those cases. So don't tell us that you've been doing what you're supposed to do.
I mean, I was incarcerated during those times.
We're ready to vote. Mr. Roche will be voting first.
Mr. Jackson, through the interview, you pled guilty to violating conditions number 2, number 3, and number 10 of your supervision contract. I also find you guilty of violating condition number 4 of your supervision contract. Therefore, I'm revoking your supervision.
Mrs. Jackson.
All right, Mr. Jackson, likewise, my vote is to revoke. You are guilty of the violations against you, and my vote is to revoke.
And Mr. Jackson, I do concur. I find you guilty of violating conditions 2, 3, 4, and 10. And my vote is to revoke your parole. Now, you need, when you need to take advantage of whatever program opportunities that are available to you, and you will be afforded an opportunity to come back before the board. Good luck to you, sir. That concludes our business in EBR. Thanks, Captain Captain Miles, for accommodating us. We're going to sign off at 8:23.
So I don't have any information to share on this case. There's just, except that he's still locked up. Maybe we will see him come up for another parole hearing, or maybe he's just going to serve out the rest of his time. I do like that Miss Jackson asked him how much more time he had. And, it seems interesting that he was locked up for manslaughter, given a 20-year sentence when he was 16 years old, and he served almost all of it. And I think he just had about a year and a half left to serve when he got revoked now, which was in December of 2023. So at the time of this recording, July 2024, he's been locked up, what is that, like 7 months? And, maybe 8 months. So it could be. We'll see him one more time. It'll be interesting to see that. I just love classic Miss Jackson. And then you have Miss Renata that came in there, and she's like, well, it's not, you haven't been doing great for 10 years. You have a firearms charge where you were reprimanded. You're 83 months on the not paying your fees. And you might say the not paying your fees part. It's like if you go 1 month and nothing happens, and 2 months, and 3 and 6 months later, you're getting away with not paying with it. You kind of probably will just stop paying it. And I think that might be the system's fault for letting him get behind 83 months. But we're so used to it's just for now watching these other revocation hearings like in Connecticut and Iowa and Utah, they don't really take it such a big deal. They'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, it's been 10 years, you haven't gotten locked up for anything, so yeah, you're doing great, we'll let you out again. And Louisiana, they're not saying no, you can't just. What's interesting too was it his aunt that he slapped her and she called the police, and just like that. Oof. Anyways, let's jump into another classic Miss Jackson, Mr. Shea Renat's revocation here. We're going to see a bunch of these tonight because I love seeing this crew together. So let's go.
Good morning, Committee on Parole. We are reconvening at Caddo Correctional Center on Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. It's 8:30 a.m. Would the staff at Caddo please introduce yourself for the record?
Latasha Richardson, classification.
Rick Ferris, jail commander.
All right, thank you. And this is Mr. Drayden.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and your DOC number.
My name is Carlos Drayden, DOC number 335827, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Drayden. My name is Cheryl Renata. This is Mr. Alvin Roche, Mrs. Fonda Jackson. Do you have a parole revocation questionnaire there in front of you?
This right, this one here, this here.
No, it's a parole revocation questionnaire. See it on the screen? Is that your signature at the bottom of that page?
Yes, ma'am.
Dated October 17th, 2023.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So that, based on that form and your answers to those questions, it was determined you're not eligible for appointed counsel. So are you ready to proceed this morning?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right. So we're here for a revocation decision. When I find the, let me get to the right page. Here it is. I'm going to read the allegations against you, after which you'll enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. You can plead guilty with a statement or not guilty with a statement also. And then we'll have a discussion about the allegations. All right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Mr. Drayden, you're accused of violating the conditions of your parole, specifically condition number 4, which states you committed the offense of domestic abuse battery in April 2019, and you were arrested for this charge on May 1st, 2023. On August 23rd, 2023, the domestic abuse battery charge was not crossed. How do you plead to violating condition number 4?
Ma'am, I plead not guilty.
Not guilty, okay. And
Yes,
and
ma'am,
the
because
statement,
the statement is,
we'll get to the statement in a minute. Let's just finish with the allegations, and then we'll let you tell us the story, okay?
yes, ma'am.
Next is condition number 10. You're currently $4,098 in arrears on your supervision fees. How do you plead to violating condition number 10?
I'm guilty, ma'am.
Okay. Your case has been assigned to Mr. Roche. Would you answer his questions?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Dryden. How are you?
I'm all right.
Okay, Mr. Dryden, sit back, take a deep breath, and we're gonna get to the bottom of this, okay?
Yes, sir.
You're no anxious, but just sit back, relax. Now, Mr. Dryden, you are released on supervision in 2018, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
And you are accused of domestic abuse in 2019, and you were arrested in May of 2023, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I had no knowledge.
Sir? So now give me an explanation why there was 4 years in between the alleged offense and your arrest.
Sir, I had no knowledge. I even had a warrant out for my arrest or any of that. I went to court on some tickets. I was presently, when I went to court on some tickets, I had got credit for time served. As I was being released, they come back and said I had a domestic abuse from 2019. I had no knowledge of it, sir.
Okay, now, were you dating the victim at the time of the alleged offense?
At the time, me and her had been split up. This we weren't even much dealing with each other at the time. And
At your preliminary hearing, you mentioned your brother Thomas.
yeah, he the one who started messing with her.
Sir, tell me the involvement between the victim and Thomas.
They the ones got the ongoing relationship. We just had our little thing. That's all it was. It wasn't no relationship as a talking about a long-standing relationship. It was not one.
Okay. And the charges were all processed, is that correct?
Yes, sir, there were.
And what was the basis of them dismissing the case?
The basis of them dismissing the case, affidavits done by her, and that was it, sir. And I went to trial on it on the 23rd of August, and they dropped all charges, dismissed all charges.
Okay, now, how long have you been incarcerated?
They didn't I have been incarcerated. They didn't re-incarcerate me. I was incarcerated from May to August. Then I was reinstated on my parole on the 24th, the day after the trial. And I went and reported on that August, the end of August. I went and reported in September. And come October, they rearrest me behind the same thing, sir. They saying,
so you've been incarcerated since October?
Sir?
So you've been incarcerated since October?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Okay. So you said your brother did an affidavit. You said
she did the affidavits herself.
Okay. Madam Chairman, I don't think I have any further questions.
All right, before you before you were arrested the first time, okay? Because I know you got arrested twice or detained twice. Before you got detained the first time, what was going on? Were you working? Were you reporting?
I was working, I had got, they had picked me up for,
I understand, but please just answer the question.
yes, I was working, ma'am. I was doing, catering
Where were you working?
at Furlough's Cajun, Kitchen, doing
Okay.
catering, ma'am.
Okay, but that's kind of part-time.
Yes, it was.
So, how long were you in prison?
How long was I in prison? I was incarcerated for about 5.5 years, ma'am.
And where were you incarcerated?
I discharged from Morehouse Parish, ma'am.
Did you ever go to a DOC facility?
Yes, I have, ma'am.
Okay, while you were there, did you pick up any job training or job skills?
I did some tutoring, but that was that extent.
Job training, I didn't
Nope.
say tutoring.
No, ma'am, I didn't pick up any job training. I worked at Beauregard at the in the city of Pineville while I was incarcerated as well.
Well, my point is a catering job, that's sporadic. That's, whenever there's a function, which isn't, a steady job. Why haven't you tried to secure reliable employment?
Okay, well, ma'am, I have been trying to fill out my disability because I have a bad leg, and at the time I told my parole.
Stop talking. What's wrong with your leg?
I had got shot about 20 years ago, and it just making my cartilage has deteriorated in my knee, and it makes me walk with a limp.
Okay, and
I've been trying to make my doctor's appointment, but every time I've been able to try to get my doctor's appointments lined up, I've been back and forth in the system, ma'am.
that makes no sense. None whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you haven't really made a real effort to try to work. Because they can give you shots in your knee to help that.
Okay.
When's the last time you paid a supervision fee?
Since 19, ma'am.
And why didn't you pay? Okay, we'll skip over the pandemic. Okay, let's go to 22 and 23. Why weren't you paying supervision fees?
Ma'am, I've been incarcerated majority of 23. I hadn't been out.
22.
Okay, with 22, ma'am, it just been running in the bad breaks, ma'am. I'm just being honest with you.
Did it ever occur to you that you make your breaks?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, there are people who've been in prison, stayed in prison a lot longer than you did, and they get out and they manage to be successful. But you're using the fact that some people don't have a leg and they still manage to get a job and be successful.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't you think you can do better than you've chosen to do so far?
Yes, ma'am. I put forth my best effort.
You have.
I said I would try my best to put forth my best effort, ma'am.
I think you need to do that. Okay, I think you need to do that. Stop using that leg as an excuse. Stop trying to get disability. From the neck up, you got a brain, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You gotta be able to use that brain to support yourself. Not every job requires manual labor.
That's true, ma'am.
So,
Mr. Russia.
Mr. Dryden, when is the last time you had a full-time job working 40 hours a week?
It's been a while.
How long have you been out of incarceration since 2018, right?
Yes, sir. I done had a job since then, but when COVID came,
Sir, when is the last time you had a full-time job working 40 hours a week?
about 20.
And what were you doing?
Cooking, ma'am, cooking, sir.
And how long did you have that job?
I kept it by 8, 9 months.
That's not a good employment record, just 8 or 9 months.
They wind up closing because of COVID.
And you didn't look for another job?
I did, but I wound up getting unemployment for a little while, and
So you took advantage of the financial boom during COVID and took unemployment and checks that were given out. So COVID is over in 2022. Why didn't you get a job in 2022?
I've been looking, sir. I hadn't found anything that I was able to be.
Everywhere I look, there's sign hiring $10 an hour, $14 an hour. When you can't find work, McDonald's always hiring, Burger King, churches. You find a job until you can get a job until you find a job you want. Walmart is looking for employees to keep the doors open. There's no reason why an able-bodied man cannot find a job if he's really looking. You agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Commander Ferris, is there anything you'd like us to know about Mr. Drayden?
Well, he came here on October 13th, 2023, and he had one write-up last week on December the 7th for disobeyal of a verbal. They asked him not to stand at a certain individual's cell and talk, and he continued to.
All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Mr. Drayden, let me ask you this. In 2019, you were in a relationship with Ms. Jones, is that right? But you are no longer.
We just had our thing, ma'am. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. All right. Anything you want to say to us before we vote?
I'm trying, I'm just trying to get past this, because I didn't even know I had a warrant out for my arrest from 2019 on up until now. I really didn't, because that would have been that I'd have been had that taken care of. But I didn't got this done and had my best to rectify all this. I don't know.
Right, sir. I think we're ready to vote. Mr. Roche will be voting first.
Okay.
Chairman, I move for executive session.
Second. We have a motion and a second for our executive session. I do not object, so it's a unanimous vote for executive session to discuss confidential matters. So stand by, Mr. Drayden. We'll be right back with you.
In Camp Fair, the woman locked me up. I didn't even much go to nobody's cell. She locked me in the cell, saying I was talking to somebody in the cell. I was sitting in a chair in the day room.
I just gotta go by what.
It's okay.
What they got right now.
All right. A commander.
It's all good. Yeah, they do
All right, we are back in regular session. It's 8:48. And we are prepared to vote. Mr. Drayden, Mr. Roche will be voting first.
Mr. Drayden, you're a complicated case and you have a problem. You can't find employment and you need to find employment. You agree with me on that?
Yes, sir.
So what I'm gonna do is, in lieu of revocation, I'm going to order you to a 6-month transitional work program where you'll be allowed to go out and work in the public for 6 months, earn some money. Hopefully you do a good job at that job and you'll be offered employment at that establishment when you're released. And then you'll have a job. So basically what you're gonna be is incarcerated for 6 months, working at a job, earning some money. After 6 months, you'll be released and hopefully you'll be offered employment at that establishment. Good luck.
Mrs. Jackson?
All right, Mr. Drayden, likewise, my vote is do not revoke and order you to complete a 6 months transitional work release program and add a condition of your parole that upon release you're to maintain full-time gainful employment. Mr. Drayden, I think you yourself realize you can do better than what you're doing. Okay? You know, raise your expectations of what you can do. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Make yourself proud.
Yes, ma'am.
My vote.
Mr. Drayden, I do concur with my colleagues. My vote also is in lieu of revocation to send you to a work release program with the same special condition as Mrs. Jackson ordered. And I'll add a special condition. You're to have absolutely no contact with, call me.
I hadn't had any contact with.
It's not a problem then. I'm gonna put it on your sheet though. Good luck to you, sir.
All right, thank you.
And all at Caddo? All right, Commander, that completes our business at Caddo. Thanks for accommodating us today.
Yes, ma'am.
So we had some Mr. O'Shea classic in there. He's just talking about all the different work options and just, you know, it's I love it. I just love seeing this board not take any excuses and just lay it out how it is. And they did the right thing, sending him to work release, trying to get the right habits in place, help him get some finances set up. Something interesting, I guess the information that we have is that he is out. So he completed his work release successfully and he was released. He's out of custody. So hopefully we don't hear from him again. Now, what's interesting, or a little bit of a twist to them sending him to work release, is the last time he was in work release, he sued. He sued the commander. He sued, I think, three correctional officers in the work release, and his lawsuit was dismissed. Let's see the end results, the exact words that they used. It was dismissed with prejudice. With prejudice to plaintiff filing any new civil action. So it was, I guess they call a frivolous lawsuit. I didn't read through the entire thing, but in a nutshell, while he was at work release, he claims that he was the defendants, Captain Leone, Sergeant Martin, Sergeant Ewing, and Sergeant Loretti, officers at the time of the incident, forming the basis of the litigation. So upon arriving at Terrebonne facility in May 2010, the plaintiff began participating in the Offender Transitional Work Program. And again, that's kind of ironic because like the last time he was sent there, he ended up suing all of them. So I wonder if the board knew that. According to the affidavit, James Felder and the regional warden of Louisiana Workforce, plaintiff was provided copies of the Department of Disciplinary Rules and Procedures for adult inmates. The plaintiff alleges that on May 28, 2011, the defendant exerted excessive force upon him in violation of his rights under the 8th Amendment in the United States Constitution. According to the plaintiff's complaint, Captain Michael Leon stayed on the other side of the door and watched as Sergeant Martin, Sergeant Ewing, and Sergeant Lorette beat and physically attacked me by punching, kneeing, and twisting my arms. Lorette put a chokehold on me before slamming me to the ground on my right shoulder with excessive force. I wonder if this had anything to do with the officer standing behind him during the entire parole hearing. We have seen that before, so it's not necessarily indicative, but it is, I don't know, there was something to that, I think. No, it was a decade ago also, it could be, but anyways. Chokehold me before slamming me to the ground on my right shoulder with excessive force. Plaintiff alleges that he was not allowed to see a doctor for 3 days following the May 28th incident, at which time he was transferred to Tensas Detention Center in Waterproof, Louisiana. What a name, Waterproof. Plaintiff states that he was treated by the doctors on staff at Tensas, where he received pain medication. Complaint PP45, he filed instant suit pursuant, blah, blah, blah. Now, they agreed that they did not dispute that he was involved in a scuffle with correction officers at Terrebonne facility in May 20, 2011. However, all the officers involved deny that any excess of force was exerted upon the plaintiff during the incident. And I'll put the link, and thank you, Richard, for providing it, but just interesting context. Now, whether or not they did really miss him, I mean, who knows? I could believe either way, frankly. But anyways, I do think it's just classic how Mr. O'Shea handled that one. Let's jump in to another with the same board. Here we go.
Mr. Forges, good morning, sir.
Morning, my name is Landry Forges, DOC number 569896.
Yes, sir. So you're here for a revocation decision. Do you have a revocation questionnaire there in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that your signature at the bottom of that page?
Yes, ma'am.
And so we're here for a revocation decision this morning, and according to your answers to that questionnaire, you're not eligible for appointed counsel. So are you ready to proceed this morning?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Stand by. Let me get the right page first. All right, sir. I'm going to read the allegations against you, after which you'll enter a plea of guilty or not guilty, and then we'll talk about it. Okay? Before we vote, we'll talk about it. So you're accused of violating condition number 4, which states on or about June 18, 2023, NOPD issued a domestic violence warrant for you with charges of simple criminal damage to property and battery on a dating partner. You were arrested by Probation and Parole Jefferson District on July 7th, 2023. How do you plead to violate condition number 4?
Not guilty.
Not guilty. Okay. So your case has been assigned to me. I'll start the discussion with you. So you pled not guilty to violating condition number 4. And I noticed that you went to court. The DA did accept those charges, and you did go to court, and you pled guilty on October 27th, 2023.
Yeah, I pleaded to simple battery.
and simple criminal damage to property.
Yes, ma'am.
So condition number 4 says, I will not engage in criminal activity. So you want to tell us what happened?
Oh, yeah, it started off as a verbal on a phone, and we was outside my girlfriend's building, and she came out, and we started arguing face to face, and she got a little physical. So as me being a male figure, I blocked and guarded myself, and I kind of like just pushed her a little, and she fell on the ground.
Why'd you push her?
Because she got physical with me, and I was like blocking myself. As me being a male figure, I just just defend. I just pushed just a little, and she fell.
And so let me ask you this. How tall are you?
I'm 5'5",
How much you weigh?
like 140.
And she's 5'3", weighs 125. Something like that.
No, she's like 5'5", 5'6", like a little bit taller, like by like my height, a little taller.
Well, it must be when she's wearing heels. So when you went to court, you were sentenced to your credit for time served, and you were detained in July. So you had served 3 months.
Yes.
They issued a stay away order from her for 2 years, required that you receive anger management, you pay restitution to her of $300, and an ankle monitor. Is all that right?
I didn't plead guilty to the ankle monitor. It was simple battery, criminal damage, and restitution, and 2-year stay away order.
Yep. Well, I have that an ankle monitor was ordered.
Okay, because I went like to court on a Monday, and they discussed the ankle monitor, and my lawyer said just come back Thursday, and they're not gonna give me the ankle monitor. So I don't know if that was still in the deal.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, that was what happened in court. This is a whole different proceeding. Do you have any questions?
I do. What was the simple criminal damage to property, Ms. Borges?
Oh, it was a window.
Well, tell me about that.
Oh, we was inside. Well, it was like a little bit before that. We was inside, and I threw something at the window.
What did you throw at the window?
But I threw at the window like a glass.
A what?
A glass,
Why?
just kind of out of anger.
So you weren't outside and threw something up at a window from outside?
No, ma'am.
Well, let me ask you this. You said that the altercation was outside, that you were outside her apartment, you called her, she came outside, y'all got into this altercation where you pushed her and she fell. So when were you in?
That was before we was arguing on the phone outside. That was earlier that day.
Did you slash your tires?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Were her tires slashed?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Well. Why did you plead guilty?
Plead guilty to what? Simple criminal damage?
And simple battery.
Oh, simple. Because she got a little physical with me, and I pushed her off me. So I guess that's my lawyer explained to me. I guess that's that simple battery.
What are you on parole for?
A convicted felon with a firearm.
How long have you been on parole?
I was released out of prison April 6th of 2022. So I was on parole for like 14 months before.
And were you reporting to your parole officer?
I reported a couple of times, but I was mostly at work. And one of the parole officers I had, he said just he told me download an app, and we was on, and when we'll talk on the screen like that, we'll talk on the phone like that. But he was contacting me.
Were you paying your supervision fees?
Yeah. When I can, sometimes they'll go in the hole for like 100 to 150, but I'll try to, keep it low as possible.
Well,
I was driving box trucks, and then I started working at the plant. So I mostly worked 12-hour shifts.
Mr. Landry, first of all, we do have police reports and stuff. And when she first called the police and they got there, you had left the location. But then you returned and you threw rocks at the victim's second floor window, breaking the glass. So, you were outside when you threw whatever you threw at the window. And when you called her that day to come down, you told her that you had slashed her tires, and she came down to check to see if you had in fact slashed your tires. And it's at that point that you approached her and struck her and pushed her to the ground and hit her again.
I couldn't. There's no possible way that I could have got to her car because her car is gated.
I didn't say you slashed her tires. I said you told her that you slashed her tires, which is the reason that she came down to make sure her car was okay.
Oh, because I couldn't get to her car. It was we was arguing, and she came down.
Thank you, Mrs. Forges.
Excuse me, I didn't.
I said thank you.
Broke up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Forges, is there anything you'd like to say to the committee before we vote?
No, ma'am. That I reflected on, what I did. Sorry about what I did, and I'm ready to, get back out to my family and my sick dad that I take care of, and get back to work and prosper.
All right, well, I'm glad to hear you say all that, but I think we're ready to vote. I'll be voting first. I do find you guilty of violating condition number 4 of your parole conditions. You pled guilty to criminal activity in court on October 27th. I believe the police report is more credible than your story. My vote today is going to be to revoke your parole. And whenever you are released, add a special condition, you have no contact with Ms. Martin whatsoever. Mr. Rushton.
Mr. Forges, based on you pleading guilty in a court of law to simple battery, which is a violent misdemeanor, which is a revocable offense, I revoke your supervision.
Mrs. Jackson, my vote is the same.
All right, Mr. Forges, today your parole has been revoked. You'll have an opportunity to reapply. I do believe. Good luck to you.
Sorry, Miss Jackson. Man, she is just so good. I mean, this board is really, I miss them. I really do miss them. You know, the new board, uh, they have their moments like Miss Stapleton and the sheriff. I like them. But it's just not the same. It's just not the same. We'll do one more revocation hearing and then we'll call it a night, move to channel 2. For those of you who aren't familiar, yes, there are 2 channels. The second channel does not cover Louisiana hearings. What we cover are Connecticut, Iowa, Illinois, Utah, and interestingly enough, it gives me a whole new perspective and deep appreciation for how hard Louisiana actually does try to do the right thing. It's just night and day. I mean, forget about it. You look at the Iowa parole hearings, and they're quite shocking on how they just grant. They're just grant, and Utah is a close second to that. It's terrible. There's no such thing as victim survivor rights in the process there. Louisiana does try, but man, it was. I have no sympathy for it. Now it seems he didn't slash her tires, but he said he did, and throwing rocks in windows, and it's like, come on, grow up. But he is out, according to the information that Richard has here in the notes. It seems that he's back out, and hopefully we don't hear from him again. And poof, we'll do one more. There we go.
Good morning, sir. Can you adjust the camera a little bit downward? Because I can just see the top of his head. Oh, much better. Yes, thank you. Good morning, sir. Would you tell us your name and DOC number?
Darrell D Dou, 706-169.
All right, Mr. Dowse, good morning. You're here for a revocation decision this morning. Do you have a parole revocation questionnaire there in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that your signature at the bottom of that page dated July 21st of this year?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. According to your answers to those questions, you're not eligible for appointed counsel, so you're ready to proceed this morning?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm going to read the allegations against you. Did you expect your attorney today? Oh, I do. I do see Jacob McCarty is here. Sir, would you enter your name for the record?
Yes, good morning. Jacob McCarty on behalf of Darrell D Dou, who's present via Zoom.
Thank you. And then we also have your wife, Dominica Walker, who's also here. So I'll read the allegations against you, after which you'll enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. And then I'd ask that maybe your attorney to give us his presentation, and then we'll hear from your wife before we vote. You'll be allowed to make a statement along the way also. So, Mr. Dowse, you're accused of violating the conditions of your parole, specifically condition number 4. You failed to refrain from criminal activity as evidenced by your arrest on October 11, 2023 by the New Orleans Police Department for domestic abuse battery. The charge was refused by the DA's office on October 25th, 2023. So how do you plead to violating condition number 4, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Okay. Next is condition number 10. As of November 13th, 2023, you have an arrearage of $580 in supervision fees and the $65 processing fee. So how do you plead to violating condition number 10?
Not guilty.
Okay. Well, Mr. McCarty, would you enlighten us, please?
Yes. Good morning, members of the board. So I'll address the 2 bases in reverse order. First, as to the failure to pay, Mr. Dowse, before his arrest, was employed. And as he explained to the agents during the preliminary hearing, he was making a deliberate decision not to pay the supervision fee because the limited income that he had to go to supporting his family, including Miss Dominica, who's here with us, and his eight-year-old and other family members that he supports. He understands that he has to pay that fee. He will prioritize paying it in the future. He hopes that when he's released, he'll be able to return to his job at Pizza Hut. And if not, he plans to seek other employment. As for the new criminal activity basis, as you already noted, those charges were refused on October 31st. Mr. Douse understands that he has to manage his frustrations in a way that don't get the police called, and he will do that in the future. The DA made the decision not to prosecute that case because after review and after speaking with Ms. Dominisha, who was involved, the DA determined that it was not the kind of criminal activity that should be prosecuted. That's no excuse for getting arrested. He understands that he was arrested, and that's why he's sitting here today. But he was arrested on October 11th. He's been in continuous custody since that day. As you noted, the charges were refused on October 31st. He has now been in jail longer on this parole hold than he was on the arrest. Finally, at the preliminary hearing, the agent mentioned to me and asked Mr. Douse about some allegation about a pot of boiling water. That was not in the gist that I have a copy of, and so we had no information about that. My understanding, I think, is that it appears in the full police report, but that was not something that we were aware of at the time of the preliminary hearing, and so I'm simply making that known to the board. So based on all of that, Mr. Douse asked that the board not revoke his parole, re-release him back onto parole with any additional reprimand or programming that the board deems appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. McCarty. We appreciate that information. Ms. Dominisha, is there anything you'd like to say to the committee?
Yes, I want to add on to what Mr. Jacobs said. I wasn't aware of anything about the water situation. When the second parole officer asked me about it, I thought she was joking, really, because I didn't know anything about it. But I'm not scared of him. I'm not in danger, and I just need him home.
So, are y'all married?
Yes, we're legally married. We got married in March.
Okay, there was some confusion to that because we have, the cameras from the night of the incident, and you had indicated that he was your boyfriend, I believe, or fiance or something. But anyway, so okay, well, thank you. We appreciate the information you've given us. Mr. Douse?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything you'd like to say to us?
Basically, me and my wife, we're in a good spot right now. We have a newborn coming. I'm just ready to go home. I would ask the life for my freedom today. As we all know, the charges were refused. I'm just ready to go home and support my family because my wife and my children need me. I'm the support. I need to get home to my family.
So how many children do y'all have together?
Well, we have one 8-year-old now, and she's now pregnant, 3 months pregnant with our newborn, with our unborn child.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we are ready to vote. I will vote in first, Mr. Douse. As I said, we did see the officers' camera footage from the night of the incident. We've heard what your attorney has said, and Ms. Dominisha. I think that the two of you could benefit from some kind of counseling. I'm going to vote, do not revoke, return you to supervision with an added special condition, and that will be that you enroll and complete a domestic violence prevention program.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ocean?
My vote's the same, and congratulations on the new baby.
Thank you. I appreciate it, sir.
Mrs. Jackson.
All right, Mr. Dowse, my vote is going to be the same, but I will tell you, the domestic violence program, one of the things that it does is teach you communication skills, how to resolve things, how to communicate with the other person. And from listening to the video of the police body cam, it seemed to me like there was a disconnect on how you communicate and how she communicates. And you all need to find a way to communicate that doesn't result in, losing your temper or screaming at each other. That's not communication. Because if you're listening, you can't scream, right?
Right.
You're hearing, you understand the other person's point of view. Also, how much education do you have?
What, up to the 10th grade?
Do you have a GED?
No, ma'am. I was working on it before I got incarcerated.
And you work at Pizza Hut?
Yes, ma'am.
How much do you earn an hour?
$10 an hour.
Can't support yourself on $10 an hour. How are you gonna support a wife and 2 kids?
I was trying, ma'am. I was trying. I was doing the best I could.
I understand,
No,
but
I was.
don't you think you could raise your expectations of what you're able to do and maybe?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I was in the process of doing that.
And how? What were you doing to do that?
Well, I was going through the process of getting my TWIC card renewed, but by me having these felony convictions, it's a process now. So
But we live in an economy now where people are desperate for workers.
mhm.
And even if they have to train the person, they're willing to do that.
Mhm.
And I would just suggest to you that, there are other things that keep your job for now, but there are other things that you are capable of doing. Don't settle for a minimum wage job. Nobody can live on minimum wage, much less support a family. So you need to either try to get some, job training, get your GED, do something that's going to make you more employable. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
My vote today is do not revoke, return to supervision with the same conditions of completing domestic violence program and any other condition added by the chairman.
Mr. McCarty, would you please assist Mr. Dose in enrolling in that DBOC program?
Yes, I can do that.
And make sure that they have some form of counseling together as a couple?
Yes, I can do that. And Darrell Diamond should just reach out to me once he's out, and someone from my office will help you get enrolled.
Great.
So
So, Mr. Dowse, today your parole is not revoked. You're going to be returned to supervision with that condition that you enroll in that program. And, I think, make a good relationship with your parole officer. They can help you with your TWIC card situation and maybe get you enrolled in the high set or GED program. They have a lot of resources there in New Orleans. So good luck to you, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank y'all.
And I think
Thank you, board members.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. McCarty. We appreciate your help today. That concludes our business in Orleans. Thank you so much for accommodating us. We're going to sign off at 9:24.
Okay, thank you and happy holidays.
Thanks, you too.
Happy holidays.
Well, they let him out, and I guess having an attorney, that goes a long way. The boiling hot water thing, that sounded really scary, but their responses to it did seem genuine. So, I could believe that somehow maybe there was miscommunication around that. So from what I can see, he has not been locked back up. He's still out, and that's great. Some of the research that we have here from Richard, I'm not going to screen share it with you, but basically he was busted in what looks like involved in a gang activity. There were shots fired at a car, but he was kind of like picked up, and the ultimate roundup of that, and I don't think there was any proof that he was tied to it. They just got him on a controlled substance possession of that, and for some reason it's like listed in the same, it's like in one of those situations where there's, I guess I can screen share one part of it. You can see here, East New Orleans gang busted in police car shooting, and he's like caught in the roundup. But again, this is 2019. I don't think there was any proof that he was involved with the gang. But I don't know what else. It was a quick hearing. There was not exactly anything interesting when, we've heard Miss Jackson say this a few times, don't get stuck doing the, I guess she's trying to talk him into improving his life, improving his different skills. Certainly it'd be a good shot just to stay out of prison, but hopefully we don't see him again, right? I don't know. So we'll do more hearings. What I'm doing is I'm looking through, like archives and things and trying to find classic Miss Jackson and Mr. O'Shea and also Mr. Marabella hearings. So if you do like that I'm doing this, let me know in the comments section. Also, I did see that some of you are asking for more revocation hearings, so that's why I did this route. So I do listen. Send me comments, write me emails. I am looking for that feedback. And with that, I'll let you go.